Alright, picture this. You've landed your first client as a freelance web developer to build a website for a local small business. You feel confident about how to code the actual website, but how do you handle the web hosting part of the equation? This is a question that a lot of online tutorials often overlook, myself included. But in the real world, you do need to think about web hosting, especially if you want to make money as a freelance developer or even run a small web dev agency. There is a lot of work that goes into managing a server, but if you don't have the experience yourself, managed hosting can take care of a lot of that work for you. And that's exactly what we're going to be covering with the help of SiteGround. SiteGround is the sponsor of this video, but I genuinely like and recommend them, and I've actually used them to host my own website for the past 7 years and counting. Alright, let's get into it. So if you're curious about getting into handling client web hosting, what are your options? Well, there's basically two kinds of hosting, managed and unmanaged. Managed hosting means that the hosting company sets up and maintains the server, handles security, backups, and can install CMS software like WordPress. It will generally be more expensive since the hosting company is handling more of these responsibilities. Unmanaged hosting means that you purchase server space from the hosting company, but you have to handle the setup, maintenance, security, backups, and software installation yourself. It will be cheaper than managed hosting since you're going to be doing most of the work, but if you don't have experience in server management, it is a pretty steep learning curve, and it can be a lot of hassle and annoyance if you're not really that into it. So if I was getting back into doing freelance work for small businesses, what I personally would do is go the managed hosting route. This is just me, but I would prefer to be doing just the web development side of things, and I wouldn't feel super comfortable handling all the server security and upgrades myself. So if you do want to get into freelancing as a side or full-time business, what can you charge your clients? And how easy would it be for you to make your money back from the cost of purchasing hosting from SiteGround? Now, I do want to preface this with saying that these are numbers that I've found, but your own situation is most likely going to depend on where you yourself are located, your own skills and experience, and where your clients are located. All right, so here is a list of WordPress maintenance services from the blog WP Beginner. And if you scroll down this page, you can see this table with a list of different maintenance companies just to give you an idea of what you could charge for WordPress maintenance. So most of these services are between $40 to $100. So just to pick a mid-tier number for our purposes here, let's say you charge $75 a month for hosting and maintenance. Then if you get the SiteGround Go Geek tier of hosting, the regular price is going to be $44.99 per month. So with just one client on your plan, you've already made your money back per month. And you can host more than one client website on this tier. Now, I do want to emphasize that going this route of building, hosting, and maintaining clients' websites is definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is hard work with a pretty steep learning curve, and if you're running your own business, there is just a whole lot that you need to do in terms of following local guidelines for taxes and business requirements, client communication, which is a whole thing in and of itself, as well as learning how to market yourself as a business. And all these areas are outside the scope of this video, and you are going to have to do your own research, but I just wanted to share this because this is, a genuinely viable source of income if you want to work as a web developer. So if you're curious about learning more about freelancing and you just want to know what it's all about, I did find this pretty interesting article from a Reddit user who shared a very detailed write-up about how he manages his own website business called CodeStitch. It's an interesting read on what goes into the business side of things, like charging for clients and maintaining their websites. So I'm going to share this link down below as well, just to give you an idea of what goes into running a business kind of like this. Next up, I'm going to show you how you can set up multiple WordPress websites on SiteGround. I am going to be using WordPress simply because, like it or hate it, if you're doing freelance or agency work, there is a very high likelihood that you're going to have to work with WordPress because it's what so many small businesses use. All right, so we're here on SiteGround's website. And if you look at their pricing for web hosting, they have 3 different tiers. Now, the main difference between these 3 tiers is the number of websites that you are allowed, the amount of web space that you can have, and also the number of visits per month. So the first tier, the startup tier, this is the lowest tier, and this is really if you're just building one website for yourself because you can only have one website allowed with this tier. Then on the middle Grow Big tier, you can have unlimited websites, and then you also have more space and more visits per month. And then the top Go Geek tier, this also has unlimited websites, and then you have double the space again from the middle tier and more visits. And if you keep comparing the features between these different tiers, you can kind of see that most of the other essential and managed WordPress features are the same. However, you can see that the top Go Geek tier does have some exclusive features that you most likely want if you're going to be managing multiple clients with SiteGround, and I'll show you what those are in a little bit. It also has the highest tier of resources, which means that it'll be a faster server compared to the other two tiers, which is important for your site speed. Now, I am going to be using the top Go Geek tier so that I can show you all of these extra client features. And one note on pricing. So pretty much every web host for WordPress hosting gives you a really big discount the first year, and then it goes up to the regular price after that. SiteGround is what I would consider a premium host, so they may be a bit more expensive than other hosts, but I personally think it's worth it because I found their customer support to be quite good. If you start a support chat, you are talking to an actual human, not an AI bot, which I think is pretty important these days. And in terms of website uptime, I haven't had any issues with uptime since I've been with them. Also, they're running a Black Friday sale through December 2nd. So if you're looking for web hosting, you can get a discount at the time of this recording, where the prices for these tiers are going to be $199, $399, and $599 per month for the first year. And I've linked that below if you want to check it out. All right, so I'm going to select the Go Geek plan and click Get Plan. And in this next step, you can get 1 year of a free domain name, or you can add an existing domain if you have one already. I'm not going to use a real domain name, so I'm going to select existing domain, and then you can type in, a nonsensedomain.com, and then select continue, and then select I'll register later. So after this, you want to fill in your account information, client information, payment info, and then once you finish all that, you can click to pay, and then it'll create your account, and this might take like a minute or two. All right, so once you've gotten your account set up and you've logged in, you should see this as the home page on your dashboard. So to create a new site, we want to go up here to the Websites tab. And you can see that I already have 3 websites running here already, but let's make a new website. So I'm going to click New Website in the top right here. And one thing that's kind of cool is that you can actually select different data centers for the different websites on your account. They don't always have to be the same. So, if you have visitors that are located in a certain part of the world, you can select a data center that would be closer to them so that it'll help with the website load time. All right, so here you can choose what domain name to use. And I'm not going to register a new domain, and I don't have an existing domain name. So for now, I'm just going to select temporary domain. And this means that you're going to use a temporary sghost.com from SiteGround, and you can always add your real domain name later once you register that. All right, so let's click continue. And this is part of their installation wizard. If you're not sure what to select, I'm just going to skip this and then create a new blank site because we can add everything that we need once it is created. And here's more add-on stuff if you need any of these. SiteGround does give you automatic daily backups, but if your website is going to have a ton of changes throughout the course of a day, then you might also want hourly backups with this premium backup option. But for most regular sites, you probably don't need these, so I'm not going to add them. So let's click Finish, and then it will take a little while for the site to get up, so you might just have to wait a little bit. All right, so the website is now all set. So let's check out the site tools first. So this is SiteGround's own version of the cPanel control panel that web hosts usually have. And I do think that this is pretty cool, and I think it has slightly better UI. Also, if you have multiple websites, it's going to be easier to manage with this because each website has its own individual site tools panel instead of having all of your websites under a single cPanel. Keeping these things separated is also going to be better for security as well as performance for your sites. Now, the first thing is up at the top is the domain of the site that you're currently on. And since I have multiple sites, if I click this change button, this is a switcher where I can select whatever website I want to work on. And for each site, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see site information where it tells you, your server's IP address and also the name servers. And there's also some analytics, which, there's nothing here yet, so those are blank. And up at the top, they have some pinned tools, but all the tools that you need are going to be in this left sidebar here. So at the top under Site, you have a file manager tool, and here you can look at the files that you have on your server. So you have this Explorer tab, and here it lets you see the files and folders, but you can also create or upload new files or folders. And you can also edit existing files. So for example, if I double click this default HTML file, it's going to go to editor mode, and you can actually see the whole file and you can make changes right here. And I do also like that they have syntax highlighting for the file, so it's not just like a plain text file. So in addition to the file manager, they have, FTP if you need to create that, although you should probably be using SSH. And then you can also create and manage your MySQL or Postgres databases. Then next, let's check out the security tools. So like I mentioned earlier, you automatically get daily backups of your website. So if a site breaks or it gets hacked, you can quickly restore a previous version. Also, these backup centers are geo-distributed, meaning that they are kept in a different region or even country than the data center that your actual website is on. So this can really help if there's some kind of disaster that happens that affects the local area, like a power outage or even some kind of natural disaster. And you have the SSL manager to add and manage your SSL certs for your website. Another option that you have here, if you go to the website, is you can enforce HTTPS to, force your website and resources to all load securely. You can also protect URLs so that you only allow certain users to be able to access specific URLs on your website. And you can also block traffic from certain IP addresses or even entire countries, which is helpful if you're getting a ton of spam or bot traffic. And then with the site scanner, you have some premium add-ons if you want to scan your server files every week or even every day. And this would be additional security, so even without these premium add-ons, you automatically have regular security measures like a web application firewall and an anti-bot system. So next up in the speed section, you have caching. So you have 3 different types of server level caching to help speed up your website's load time and also the time to first byte. Then they have a CDN, and this is so you can cache your content in different geographic places, which will help speed up the load time for visitors no matter where they are in the world. So you get basic CDN for free, which is honestly pretty awesome because then you don't have to mess with your DNS settings if you are trying to set up like Cloudflare's CDN, which I had to do, and it was a little bit of a hassle. All right, so next up is the WordPress section. And we do want to install WordPress because there's some WordPress plugins that SiteGround has that I find pretty useful, so I wanted to mention those. And you can install WordPress using this UI. So if I select it, here we need to fill out the admin info, which is how you log into WordPress. And they do have this WordPress starter plugin, which could be helpful if you're new to WordPress and you need some extra help finding a theme or knowing what plugins you might want to install. I don't really need this, so I'm just going to leave this unchecked. And then once you have your info filled out, you can click Install. And the installation process will take a little bit of time. It might take several seconds to a minute. And once it's done, let's go to the WordPress admin panel. Now there are a couple of SiteGround specific plugins that come with your WordPress install. So if you go to Plugins, you can see them here. So they are Security Optimizer and then Speed Optimizer. So Speed Optimizer gives you settings to speed up your website, as you might imagine. So if we go here on the left sidebar to the plugin, and they have 3 different types of caching, and you can also set these in the Site Tools dashboard, but you can turn them off or on, at least for the first 2, right from WordPress. If you want to use the 3rd type, meme cached, or mem cached, I should say, you do need to turn it on first in Site Tools. So in your Site Tools, you want to go to Speed Caching, go to mem cached, and then you want to turn it on here. And then after you turn it on in Site Tools, you should be able to turn it on in WordPress. And another feature that I found pretty helpful is that under caching settings, you can purge the cache manually. And I find this really helpful to do after making changes to the website files. All right, and then if we go to environment, these are some settings that you can use to enforce HTTPS in your WordPress site. You can also rewrite requests for insecure assets to use HTTPS. And you can also optimize WordPress to not use as much CPU when you're logged in, which I've found pretty helpful. And you can also clean up your database every week. All right, next in the front end section, these settings let you minify and combine your website files to reduce the number of server requests that they create if you haven't done that yourself in your files. All right, then in the media section, these settings let you compress images, and it'll also convert your images to WebP images, which is a smaller format than regular JPEGs or PNGs. And you also have some lazy loading settings. And then in site performance, this will let you test your website with Google Page Speed, although this kind of gives you like the numbers, which is nice to have. But if you want more details, then you may need to go directly to Google's Page Speed site or use the Lighthouse tool in Chrome. All right, so let's check out the Security Optimizer now. So in Security Optimizer, we have some settings for site security, and these basically lock your files and folders from editing or execution that you don't want to happen. And you can also disable some WordPress features that are often leveraged by hackers. Then if we go to Login Security, you can customize the login URL to be different from the default WP admin page. You can also limit logins to certain IP addresses, which I think is really helpful. And you can set up two-factor authentication for users and do some other things to make the admin site of your WordPress site more secure. So they also have the logs of activity to the website, and they have post-hack actions that you can take if you have been hacked. So these optimization and security tools just do a lot of work for you without you having to set all this up yourself, which I think are pretty time-saving services. And again, you can charge your clients for these because you're getting them from SiteGround. There are other plugins that can handle security, caching, and image optimization for you, but then instead of having to install and manage multiple individual plugins, I do think it's pretty nice that you have these two SiteGround plugins that do so many things, and they've been designed to work with the SiteGround server. All right, so if we go back to our SiteGround site tools, in the WordPress section, there are some more tools that'll help you with the process of development and deployment. All right, so in staging, you can create a copy of your site to be a staging site, which will have a different subdomain name. And this means that you can test out changes and get client approval before they get pushed to the live site. And to help keep the staging site private, you can put the URLs behind a password or limit them to specific users of the SiteGround site. Then once you get approval for changes or the new features from the client, you can then deploy those changes to the production site. And SiteGround also has a migrator tool that you can use to migrate a WordPress website from another hosting provider to SiteGround. They also can handle auto updates of the WordPress core software, and optionally you can have them update your plugins as well. In addition to these updates, SiteGround will also automatically update the PHP version for you, which I found immensely helpful as someone who had to do all these kinds of updates myself. And if anything goes wrong with updates, you can easily revert your site to a backup version using the site tools. And if you ever run into an issue or break your website, you do have access to 24/7 support from the SiteGround staff who've been trained in WordPress specific support. All right, so you've gotten a look at the tools that you can use to set up and maintain a SiteGround website so that it runs fast and secure. But there are a few other tools that I wanted to mention that can help you manage your clients as well as employees who are going to be working on the websites. So from your main SiteGround dashboard, if you click on your profile pic in the top right and then go to Manage Users, you can create new users who will get access to the site tools of the website that you want. Now, there are two types of users that you can create. You can create a collaborator user, and that would be someone like a developer that you want to have access to your site tools in order for them to manage the website or make a code change. So here's what the collaborator SiteGround dashboard will look like. It is pretty much the same as yours. It's going to load on the siteground.com domain, and they are going to have access to the whole SiteGround menu options up top, as well as site tools for the website that you've added them to. So you can go to Websites, go to Collaborations, and these are the sites that have been added as a collaborator website. So if you click on Site Tools for either of those sites, then you'll go to the Site Tools dashboard for that specific site. So the main difference between the collaborator options in Site Tools and yours as the owner is that they just won't have access to the same email settings as you are, since you're the one in charge of the email settings. Now, the other type of user is a client user, and this would be if you're working as a web hosting reseller, meaning that you are purchasing a large hosting package from SiteGround and then selling smaller parts of that package to your own clients for their websites, and then they might want to manage the websites themselves. So this is what a client user is going to see. So they're not going to have that main SiteGround dashboard with all the different menu options at the top. The only thing you're going to have access to is the site tools for the website that they have gotten from you. And you might notice that this dashboard is white labeled. So it's not loading on a SiteGround domain, but it's loading from a mysitearea.com domain. And there's no SiteGround logo. It just says Site Tools in the top left here. And then it has a name of the website that they are added to on the top. But other than that, they have all of the other main site tools that you have so that they are able to manage this website themselves. Another tool that you can utilize from SiteGround that will help you work with clients is getting some security and performance reports. So you can see those by going to the top right, clicking your profile picture, and going to notification preferences. And if you scroll down, you can see that you can get monthly security reports and monthly performance reports. And you can pass the info in those reports onto your clients to show them how their website is doing each month. Also, SiteGround has a really convenient tool for client handoffs once you've finished building the website. So let's say you've built the website, you have a staging version up, and you got client approval for the site to go live. Now, if a client wants to retain ownership of the website, you can actually transfer ownership to the client. The way you can do this is if you go to Websites, and let's say we want to transfer this website here to the client, you can click the three dots button that's on the right side, and then go to Transfer Ownership. And then you can recommend a SiteGround pricing tier, as well as some other add-on services. And you can optionally add yourself as a collaborator on this website when it's transferred over to the client as the new owner. So all these SiteGround tools that I've been mentioning here are things that you would have to do yourself if you were using self-managed hosting. Obviously, if you do have the skills, the time, and the desire to do server management, then you could do that and save on hosting costs. But sometimes it's just easier to pay for managed hosting, especially if you can pass on those costs to your clients. All right, so thanks for watching. I really hope that you find this video helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.